The UFC didn't make weight for this pay-per-view. Other than the main event, this card is absolutely horrible. If you told me any other fight on this card was streaming for free on YouTube, I wouldn't even stop what I was doing to go watch it. The UFC has really done a disservice to Dricus and Sean because they're asking them to carry this entire card. And personally, I can't justify ordering the pay per view based on one fight alone. And I would like to watch this fight, but there's nothing else. There's no depth on this card. So, looking at the main card, Zhang Wei Li versus Tatiana Suarez, Justin Tafa versus Taliesin Teixeira, Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato, Jake Matthews versus Francisco Prado. I don't even know who some of these fighters are. And when we look at the prelims, the only other remote interest that I would have would be watching Ilia Tuporia's brother fight. But otherwise, this is all on Dricus and Sean. And as much as I'd like to watch this fight, it's just not enough. So what I've done is I've created the UFC card order threshold. And basically here, what we need are 2.5 solid fights that justify ordering the pay-per-view. So what would be the first fight? Well, that's going to be the main event. And here we need an 8.5 to a 10 fight. Now, Dricus versus Sean meets this criteria, but here are some other examples. Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski, John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, which is, by the way, the one fight, or no, John Jones versus Tom Aspinall would be the one fight where I think that single fight could carry the entire card, even if it was the same as this card. But otherwise, I don't know of any other single fight that the UFC can make that can carry an entire card. And then one more example of an 8.5 to 10 fight is I have Robert Whittaker versus Hamzat Chimaev. And these are all just recent examples that I've pulled. And this one is somewhat of a stretch, but with Hamzat, I'm always interested in what he's going to do. So if he's on the card, to me, that's going to be an 8.5 to 10 fight. All right, then so what's the next fight? Well, then next we need a 7 to an 8.5 fight. So Alex Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree would be one example. Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad would be another. And then Jamal Hill versus Yuri Prochazka would be another example of a fight in this range. And obviously these fights can go above 8.5, but I'm just giving you an example of where I would score these individual fights and how if a card had both of these fights, then I'm starting to think about ordering the pay-per-view. And then the last one, I think this is the threshold. If you have a 5.5 to a 7 fight, along with these other two fights, I'm going to order the pay-per-view. So Colby Covington versus Joaquin Buckley, Ian Gary versus Michael Page, and then Paddy Pimblett versus Bobby Green. All of these fights, to me, fall in the 5.5 to 7 range, maybe even a little higher depending on how interested you are in one of these fighters. But to me, you need 2.5 really good fights. And you can see here, it's descending in order based on the hype that would be around the fight. But we need some good fights. We need some depth to the card. And UFC 312 just doesn't have that. And so the UFC has trotted out Dricus versus Sean, which is a really good matchup, a fight that a lot of people would want to see. But after that, what's there? It's like I would just be ordering this pay-per-view for one fight. And to me, it just doesn't even come close enough. As much as I like Dricus and I want to see him fight, it just doesn't come close enough. So I think this is the UFC card order threshold. So the UFC has to up their game and they have to start putting more on their cards and making it exciting beyond just one fight. And we've seen this with previous fights. We saw this in January. So every now and then, right, every other card or maybe every third card, the UFC will put together a really nice main card. But other than that, the UFC's, they're watering down some of these pay-per-views and it's just not going to work.